Hello, you lovely lot. Welcome back to yet another Genshin Impact video. And today we are going to be covering Prydwen's entry into the Genshin Impact scene. Yes, these are words I thought I'd never say generally, let alone on video, but Prydwen has made a Genshin Impact database. And if you want to see more content like this, as well as lore theory videos, as well as general gameplay content from Genshin Impact from yours truly, leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more videos as well. You guys get notified and it helps me out in the algorithm, so it's a win-win. So it would be truly appreciated if you guys could leave a like down below. Obviously, Prydwen is really well known in other communities. Of course, if you guys aren't aware of what they basically do tier lists, character build guides, and a couple of other things as well for multiple games. They just don't do it only for Genshin Impact right now. They do it for games like Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, Arknight's Enfield. You see all the list right here. They make it for a lot of different games. I'm somebody who actually uses them for HSR. Specifically, I use their build guides. I actually have Gilgamesh's up right now because I'm actually working on them in HSR, and they can be handy. They can be very, very handy. However, what they're more so known for is their tier lists and how people treat these tier lists. Of course, it's a very divisive thing. Tier lists always are in any gacha game, or any game, let alone a gacha game. They can be very divisive, and Prydwen's is one of the more divisive ones. There's always, whenever they update it, there's always somebody complaining or moaning about something or another. So, of course, it coming to Genshin Impact is something that I think a lot of people were quite annoyed by and quite frustrated by, because, of course, tier lists in Genshin Impact are, well, to be honest, I will start off by saying I don't think Genshin Impact needs tier lists, to be honest, because of how flexible and open the game is. I just don't think it's required at all. But of course, they've done one, they've made one, and I know so many other creators have already spoken about it. They've already reacted to it, given their thoughts. You know, players like Ziox, Zajeff, these guys who are upper echelon, top tier players in Genshin Impact, they've given their thoughts on this tier list. So I'm not really going to focus on, oh, is this character deserving of to be in this spot, or is that character deserving to be in that spot? That's not my job, and I'm not going to say it's my job. What my job is, and what my opinion is more so on, do I think Prydwen's entry into the Genshin Impact scene makes sense, right? Does having a new database like Prydwen makes sense, especially when Prydwen themselves said once upon a time ago, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember them saying this. I'll see if I can find it somewhere, but I don't think I'll be able to find it because it's so long ago, right? It's around the time of Sumeru Fontaine. I can't remember. But they basically said that they didn't feel like making a Genshin Impact database made sense at the time because it had been so long since the game had released and you had so many other options, right? You had KQM, of course, for build guides. I actually have one open right here. I wanted to keep one open because we're going to be comparing the two in just a moment. But KQM has guides for building characters. You have Game 8 for everything else in terms of local specialities and stuff like that. You have that. You have the interactive map, the official interactive map as well, to help you with that as well. So generally speaking, you didn't need another database necessarily when there was already so many present. And for them also, it made sense that, you know, rather than wasting potentially resources and money in investing into a new sort of like, you know, paying for a new server or whatever it is, or new link and or whatnot, to make a Genshin Impact database and not have that much traffic makes sense, right? So why now? And I'll be honest and say it's pretty obvious as to why now they are dropping one. And that's because it's Snezhnaya. It's the last region. It's the perfect opportunity for old players to come back, new players to join in as well, because we're in effectively the final region, right? Of course, we know that there's probably going to be one more after this, but Snezhnaya was the region that we all knew was going to be one of the big finales, right? So it makes sense for them to drop it now because there's going to be an influx of players, and it's the perfect opportunity for them to drop something like this. That's why they dropped it 3 or 4 days before the release of Snezhnaya rather than on the release of Snezhnaya, because this tier list is going to change in 3 days time, by the way, or 2 days time, in fact, I would say, right? With what we've seen in the creator experience server from the other creators, you know, Ziox using Odette and everything, and everybody else also using her. She is insane, and she makes units like Sandrone, Yaimiko, and a couple of others go straight into tier 0. I mean, Sino and Risley are going to go straight into tier 0. Trust me when I say that, based on what I've seen. So, obviously, it's to capitalize on the hype, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Now, my opinion on whether or not it makes sense for Prydwen to jump into the Genshin Impact database scene is that I think it makes sense, and I think it's great that they have dropped in, because to me personally, what's more important than anything else is having a variety of databases and information sites to take information from. When I look at guides for any game, right, not just Genshin, but any game or anything, I don't look at just one site. I look at 2 or 3 sites to see, like, oh, is the information matching, right? Am I going the right way by following this one guy, or do I follow the other guy, right? It makes sense to do that because, for example, right, I'm going to click on Arlecchino because I have Arlecchino up on the other website, right? Let me look at what build they've offered her, right? So they're saying that for Vape specifically, Crimson Moon Semblance R1, which is her own weapon, is the best weapon. Then comes Staff of the Scarlet Sands and Staff of Homa. Okay, that's what they say. Let me see what weapons here are suggested. Okay, so Crimson Moon Semblance is, of course, the signature weapon. It'll be the best one. So fair enough. They've got it right there. They've put Jade Wing Spear on here and said it's her 2nd best weapon, whereas on here, it's the 5th best weapon. Here it's the 3rd best weapon as well on Overload. So, that makes things interesting, right? Because here, Staff of Homa is like, if it is in order, by the way, it's like 5th place. Yeah, 5th place. So what's the difference there, right? But again, of course, I think it's good to have this because then you can see, like, okay, what are they saying? Are they saying similar things? Are they saying very different things? Things like that. I think it is good to have something like this just so that there's a variety of options when it comes to people who are looking into just building their units or how they want to go for it. Even with artifacts, right? Here it's for a Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy and Gladiator's Finale. On KQM, it's Fragment of Harmonic Whimsy, and then Night of the Sky's Unveiling, and then Unfinished Reverie. I mean, of course, they specifically say that it's strictly limited to use in burning teams, which is fair. They don't even count burning here at all, I don't think. At all. I don't think they've even given her... let me see her teams, because that'll tell us whether or not they've given her any sort of burning team. No, doesn't seem like it. These are only synergies with units that are Vape or Melt, basically, if I'm not mistaken, and some Overload, of course, right? Yeah, Overload, Melt, and Mona Vape. That's it. That's all they've given her in terms of teams. So I think it's fine. I think that's also fine because KQM gives you a lot more options, but I do think what Prydwen does really nice here is it kind of narrows down on what people will most likely use, right? You're not going to necessarily use Arlecchino on a burning team, right? You're primarily going to use her on something that's maybe like the Hexerai team with Overload, Nicole and Fischl, or you're going to use her on Mona Vape, right? For example. So I think it makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense to go around this way and do it this way, to be honest. And like I said, I think it's good that they've provided players with another option on top of KQM, of course, right? I'm actually curious. Wait one second. I didn't see any video guide for Arlecchino. Yeah, no video guide. Usually they have like a guide or something here. That's what they do for, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure HSR has this. Let me look at somebody. Saber. Do we have a guide for Saber? Yeah, exactly. I think this is Gooba's video, if I'm not mistaken. So Saber has a guide. Why doesn't Arlecchino? I'm kind of confused. Do they have it for other characters? Let me see Malvika. Does Malvika have one? Malvika has one. Hers is about ping mattering, but okay. As long as there's a guide, I think that's the most important thing. Because you need to also give video evidence to show that, okay, you know, this is what other people have to say. The people who actually test these units physically and in a visual format, they're saying the same thing. Actually, I'm curious, whose video was that? If it's one of the big guys, I think it makes sense. 7 Please, I've heard of him. He's good as well. Not bad. I think it makes sense. Let's see. Nefer, what do we have a video? 2 videos. That's when I win to lose. I don't know who this is. 7 Please as well. Okay, so they have a couple of people on it. So I win to lose 7 Please makes sense. I think if they have a little bit more as well, maybe if they can get in touch with some more people as well, get more guides in, I think at least it gives people a great database to see all these guides in a central location, you could say, right? Rather than, going in and about trying to look for YouTube across the various guides that people make and stuff. Having a certain amount of creators, maybe another 1 or 2 creators, have 3 or 4 creators that are making guides for all these characters, I think would be amazing, to be honest. I think it would be amazing. But obviously, like I said, I think Prydwen being in the database scene, fantastic. I think it's obviously super great to just have more options. That's the most important thing. That's what I wanted to say in regards to that. I think Prydwen being in the scene is great. When it comes to the tier list, however, I will say I think they need to be very straightforward and honest when it comes to the tier list not mattering all that much when it comes to Genshin. It's not like HSR. Genshin is not like HSR or many other games where, you know, teams have to be this hard and fast sort of structure. They need to have this hard and fast structure, right? You could run 3 really great supports or 2 really great supports and wheelchair somebody up into tier 1 or tier 0, basically, right? There's so many cases of that actually happening, right? I mean, you see so many people running like a crit Kokomi or crit Barbara or whatever it is, and they perform really well, and it works. It does work, of course, right? But you're not gonna put Barbara as like the best unit ever, but you can do it. It is possible. It is possible to make her at least somewhat usable. So I really hope that we're gonna go through these 5 things primarily. Well, 4 things. I don't want to go into changelog, but I want to go into these 4 things to see what they have to explain, and then I want to just generally have a look through the tier list. I'm not gonna critique it like so many others people have. It's their job. They're gonna do it. I'm just an average player. I'm not here to really judge where these characters lie. My personal role here in this specific video is to just keep reminding people to not take this tier list as gospel, right? HSR, I've seen how divisive that tier list has been for the community, right? And so many people take it as gospel and just use it to drive their agendas effectively, right? I really hope that doesn't happen with Genshin Impact, although it probably will, because it just doesn't make sense for Genshin to have that sort of agenda posting needed. It doesn't make sense at all for that to happen. So for me personally, I'm really hoping that they say it here that, you know, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to see here. Genshin Impact is a very flexible open world game where you can realistically play any character you want in many types of combat, and it's why the game is notoriously difficult to make a tier list for. Overworld and domains can be beaten by nearly anything, and even Spiral Abyss lets lower ranked characters in our tier list still clear its maximum difficulty. For a better look at the hardest Genshin endgame content, the Stygian tier list may be more for you, whereas overall will be a general look at overall character strength. Fair enough. I think that makes sense. That is exactly what I wanted to see. And I really wish that this line, to be honest, I wish it wasn't even in the about section. I just wish it was right here, to be honest. It should be just right there. Forget the subtext explaining what a tier list is. Just say like, okay, you don't need this, but it's there as an option for you guys, right? Because nobody's gonna look at this. People will immediately just look at this and be like, oh, how could they put this character here? Like, I know in tier 1.5 she should be in tier 1, something like that. People will be like that, right? So just wish, you know, they'd been a little bit more open about it on the very top itself, because I just feel like that's necessary, right? I don't think this is a tier list is necessary for Genshin. Fair enough for Stygian. You know what, it is what it is, but yeah. Despite the disclaimer above, not all kits are equal, so based on several metrics such as performance history overall, usage in high-performing teams, DPS calculations, and DPS testing, we have rated every character in Genshin. The experience, findings, and opinions of several theory crafters have been taken into account for the entire process to ensure multiple strong viewpoints. Good job. I think that makes sense. That's something that, you know, I had a comment in my testing DPS video, which you guys can go check out. That was supposed to be a very personal thing. I used very weird teams for some of the characters, but that's because, of course, that was how I played back in the day, and that was what I was testing. I was just testing how much my own account has grown stronger from day 0 to now. And of course, it also naturally will show the progression of how Genshin's DPS has just gone exponentially up like this, basically, right? And I only did 2 attempts, whereas here, obviously, using multiple DPS testing, using several theory crafters, that is the way you do testing, and I appreciate that they've acknowledged that and said that that's what they've done here. That is very, very good. For Stygian, every new patch will see a large shift. That's great, as the entire Stygian tier list will be a representation of how competent the characters are versus the different fights new cycle. Yes, this includes favorable shield content. Thank you. That's what I said. You know, with Stygian and all, and especially newer bosses, they end up becoming very shill based. They end up shilling towards the newest reaction or newest team or whatever it is. So obviously they will go up and down quite drastically accordingly, right? So that's something to bear in mind. Constructive community feedback and findings will also be taken into account to develop the best rankings possible for both tier lists. That's also very, very good. The tier list is divided into two tier lists, overall and Stygian. Overall is a neutral playing field, and Stygian is in fearless difficulty, which is very surprising. I thought they'd test it out in Dire. Dire is, of course, the big one, but I think also fearless makes sense because that is the one that I think most players will try and clear, right? So if a unit like, say for example, Mawika can at least do it in fearless, maybe not in Dire, but she can do it in fearless, it's still good, right? Because that's the major rewards you get, right? Dire is more so if you're trying to get the skins and stuff and you're trying to get perfect results there, which not so many people are going to go for, but fearless, at least, you know, a lot of people will want to go for that elixir or whatever, right? So it makes sense. Criteria: all characters are considered without constellation investment. All characters are using free-to-play accessible craftable weapons, no signatures included. Interesting. I'm surprised they didn't consider battle pass weapons, but I guess if they want to go pure free to play, fair enough. I think battle pass would have been nice because even at least at R0 it's an option because people might pick it up, but fair enough. All characters are using optimal artifact sets at max level. Constellations: 0 for 5 stars, 1 for 5 stars that are in temper, 6 for 4-star characters, and 2 for recently released 4-star characters. So Alosha's will be at C2 when he releases. Okay, fair enough. That's gonna neuter him quite a lot, I think, to be honest, based on the little we've seen and just generally based on how 4 stars have been recently in Genshin. C2 is going to be a bit of a neuter for him, and C6 obviously will push him up straight up. For the Stygian tier list, signatures and early constellations may have been used in past performance data, but rankings will still be based on the lower side of investment and take this into account, limiting at most a couple of extra vertical investment choices. Okay, fair enough. So you have on-field, damage support, and pure support sustain. So what is the difference between damage support and pure support? Because isn't damage support brings sustain, pure support is on top of damage contribution. Pure supports are primarily focused on buffing, debuffing, sustaining. Okay, I kind of see that. Fair enough. Damage support is basically your sub DPS, is my understanding here. This is a sub DPS, and this is your pure supports and sustain. So fair enough there. Okay. All right. Okay. That's all well and good. Tags. Expert characters with this tag require much more complex gameplay to be mastered and for them to sit at their current ranking. This can be the character themselves needing complicated combos, but also their optimal team being hard to pilot. A higher than normal reliance on reaction timings for a less experienced player. I think that's good to have, to be honest. I just think that it depends on which characters you give it to, because certain characters, I've already seen one that doesn't need that, in my opinion. Fair. But fair enough. Flexible characters can be used in large compositions. Despite a lower ranking, they may be more useful for the average player to complement different teams rather than focusing on a restrictive niche. High application characters with this tag offer higher than average elemental application rate, which can be useful for certain fights, such as enemies with wards. And then you have the drivers and then reaction, basically. Okay, very straightforward and simple. Then you have apex meta, yada yada. Okay, we won't look at that. Okay, so now for me personally, I've looked at the tier list. I've skimmed through it already. I don't want to really go over it too much. I think it's an okay tier list, to be honest. I don't have as many problems with this tier list as maybe some might do. I think more or less it's fine. I think the only thing you could probably do is move a couple of characters one tier down, one tier up. It's very, very minor adjustments. I think the only thing I would say is the expert tag could be removed on certain characters like Nefer. Don't need it, to be honest. All you have to do is dash cancel, which is very simple, to be honest. It's not that much. I guess if you're talking about overall team usage, maybe I suppose, right, potentially with the Nefer premium, right, using the sucrose skill timing and all that sort of stuff, but even then I don't think it's as necessary. Shilonen being in tier 0.5 could go down tier, simple as that. But I think generally speaking, I'll be honest and say they've not done a bad job when it comes to the tier list. I think they've done an actually okayish job. Obviously, Stygian is not here. They're only releasing it for the 7.0 patch. Again, in my opinion, that just indicates that they kind of rushed this out a little bit to make sure that they were ahead of the curve when it came to making new people and returning players aware of this website's existence effectively, right? But for me personally, I think it's an okay tier list. Like I said, I think it's fine, just some minor adjustments, and you're good to go. For me, if you treat this as maybe not gospel but as a guideline, I think it's good. I think it's honestly good because you get an idea of where the units are on the tiers. You can see how useful they are, how usable they are, whether they're hard to master, not hard to master. The only thing I would kind of maybe make an adjustment for is maybe things like Prune, for example. Having something like a partner tag for Varka, I think makes sense because that's what she's really good for. Same thing with maybe like maybe Llama is a little bit of a stretch because you can still use her individually, but having certain characters that can be used as like a partner tag, maybe Faruzan as well with like an Animo carry, makes sense to have a tag like that, right? So that's the only thing I'd consider adding to give a little bit more information to players. But overall, fine. I think the main thing I would say again is just make it clear that any character can be useful for this tier list, and that's the most important thing. This line is very, very, very significant that people need to make sure they read. So to me, that's the most important thing. When it comes to the rest of the website, I think it's good, honestly. That's the most important thing for me is how is the rest of the website. If I go on to, say for example, I want to build a very old character. Let me have a look and see some random old character that is not used as much anymore. Sarah, for example, right? How is she? Nothing there, no builds, no nothing. We've got some statistics to tell us like generally like what people are using. They're using Enka connected profiles for this, but I feel like they needed to have all of this ready from the get-go, right? They've used a sample of 3,627 players to give us this information, but why wouldn't I just use KQM in that situation, right? And that kind of invalidates then Prydwen's existence, right? If Prydwen aren't updating it with, character guides from people and stuff like that. To be fair, I will put my hands up and also say that Sarah's last guide here is from 3.3. So KQM have also not really done much with Sarah. But I feel like that's, if you want to take advantage of KQM's inactivity with these older units, you take advantage here and do something here as well, right? Make it so that people actively want to go to your website rather than KQM's and make it usable, right? For me, that's the most important thing. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I don't want this to be too long of a video because, like I said, I don't want to focus on the tier list. That's not it ain't my job to talk about this. My job is just to talk about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that Prydwen is in covering Genshin Impact's content, and I think good thing, fine. But they need to be more proactive. They need to be more active in getting this information, making sure it's right. I think having something like Enka being connected and at least giving you a guideline is good. But I also feel like having something like what you have for Arlecchino or for or anybody else, anybody that's more modern, is very much important as well, because we need. Like for Alhaitham, okay, you've given us a DPS, but where is combo strings? What teams is he useful on? Can he be usable on any of these teams? That's important as well, because I need to, if I want to build these characters and I want to learn how to use them, give us something like these how to play videos or something like that. I think that's all I would say that they need to do. Otherwise, I'm very much looking forward to seeing which direction they go in. They have a rotation builder as well, which I will admit I just noticed, to be honest. I didn't even notice it before this. I'm really hoping that this works, because this, I think, is basically, from what my understanding is, from what I'm seeing here, is that you can build this and then you can use it to share with other people as well. That would be kind of nice. I think that'll be great, to be honest. I think that'll be great if you can build these rotation builders, especially for theory crafters and, guide makers and stuff, allowing them a tool like this to allow them to build the rotations and then share it. And then you can also use it to give it to certain characters if they're reputable as well. I think would be kind of cool. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section regarding Prydwen's entry into the scene. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.